And then there's a bunch of new techniques. And we're not going to talk about all of them because there's way too many. And, Lord knows we talk long enough as is. However, we did want to talk about some. Among the Kehoe, there's 16 new Kehoe. Now, Kehoe needed padding out. So all good. However, I did want to highlight something that's been a problem to me for all the Kehoe in general, but then it's continued, it's made stronger here, which is that fire Kehoe are just the best.
Right.
They're just really strong. And so one of the weaknesses in general of fire stance is it's not a very defensive stance. Okay, it's an aggressive stance, and you open yourself up to harm to do it, by taking strife and other things. I mean, it's just fire in general is aggressive. The existing Kehoe fire are some of the strongest aggressive Kehoe. Bonus successes are awesome anyway. Fire Kehoe means those bonus successes start going into burst effects, and now you're really getting strong. And then what the new techniques do, the new Kehoe do that's a little, I don't want to say problematic, but more of a good thing, their fire Kehoe in this book are also very strong, but surprisingly defensive.
Yes.
So you can take your fire-focused monk, or whoever's doing these fire-focused Kehoe, and now they can cover up all their vulnerabilities as well, because they've got these really defensive fire Kehoe. So if the battle starts turning against them, they still only need their one ring. They're still in fire stance.
Just looking at this one example, just kind of the first one, blistering retribution. While your key is active, after you defend against damage dealt by a character in this scene, you decrease the target number of your next attack or scheme action targeting that character by half the amount of fatigue you received, which is quite a lot.
Yeah.
That means getting hit is good for you. I mean, you're still taking the damage, but suddenly you can be much better at hitting the person in front of you. And so getting hit is suddenly a good thing instead of it being a downside of being in fire. It's good and fine. Yeah. So like I say, one of the issues is if you're in fire, it should be high risk, high reward. But if you're also able to defend and get bonuses for being hit and stuff, does that make these too good?
And I'm not going to say, I'm not qualified to say whether these are too good or not. I find in general that the fire Kehoe are stronger than any other way to do these from what I've seen. The other ones might just be more tricky and I'm not grokking them fully. But that's okay. I mean, a non-fire one is the Eternal Mind's Gate, where you start seeing glimpses of your past lives, and Trace of Lives Past Ritual, which is also in the rituals section, sees more of your past lives. So these are the ways that your Togashi are seeing their past lives.
Yeah.
Becoming Togashi. So I thought those were pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about all 16, but there you go.
But that is 16 new Kehoe, which is actually quite a lot of extra ones. So that's kind of cool. The new kata, I think one of the interesting things about them is the ones, they're the usual general ones, which could be just Bushi Monk and general close quarter kata. But there are a bunch of ones that are specific to the different types of yokai, or the different types of non-human that you can be, the non-human kata category. And there's a fair few in there, which is an interesting way of simulating the abilities of a non-human.
One thing that's different about the kata in this book than most is that they are exclusive to Bushi or monk. Most of them.
That's a good point, actually, yeah.
Which means the courtier fighter, the pure courtier fighter, or different classes, people who have been who have access to kata, but are not actually Bushi tagged don't get them. And so that is one of the weaknesses of Bushi. I don't know. There hasn't been a whole lot that's been Bushi specific. So these kata are. So, well, my little courtier might be, some of these I wish I could use. They're good, and it's good to have things that are Bushi only.
Yeah.
I'm all for.
Yeah.
Tricky kata to be worth noting. The bear swipe kata makes a condition last until the end of your next turn. It is an earth 2 opportunity thing and makes the condition luster. And it supposedly works for all conditions. So prone or immobilized or anything.
Bleeding, dazed, disoriented, and prone. Those are your choices.
Okay. However, it only works off of earth opportunities. Earth stance techniques that generate conditions only make prone.
Yeah.
You could use this if you were doing an earth water one, something that lasts a bit longer, like bleed, I think lasts a bit longer. But if you're going to try and do this to try and make the immobilized thing work, it doesn't work as like you'd hoped.
So you can maybe do it in Void, because you can sometimes, I think you can use Void to get other ring opportunities, but I don't know if you can do it with 2.
Anyway, there's so many opportunities needed. Opportunities are used to create conditions to start off with, and it needs to be an earth.
Yes.
And it's like saying, it looks so good to start off with because you're trying to sustain those conditions to get other things off.
Yeah.
And it just is not pulling it. So don't be fooled by that one.
It might only work on prone because there are earth checks you can make to make someone, earth attacks you can do to make someone prone. And it may work off bleeding because if you get the right crit, which is easy if you've got a razor edge weapon, you can do bleeding. And so that'll work and help. But I don't know if there are any earth checks you can make to get dazed or disoriented. And that might mean that this kata isn't quite as good as it looks.
That's what I'm trying to say. The fact that it's specific to Earth kills this one. For starter, even if it wasn't, 2 ops to
2 ops is big anyway. Yeah,
try and pull it off, and 2 ops is big anyway. Anyway, talking about kata, however, that's a bad one. This one is a good one.
Oh yeah,
Swallow's Dart Style is a wonderful kata for your Kikita duelists.
I heard some discussion about this. Yeah,
running in quarter. Yeah, so it is important to remember with this then that most Iajutsu and many other kata of some of the cooler kinds of things you can do are move actions.
Movement and attack.
Therefore, movement and attack actions. So therefore, you can use the ops with Swallow's Dart to give you some more resistance. And since this is worse if you're wearing armor, it gives you the resistance, minus your armor. Additional resistance minus the armor. If you're a person who's like a duelist who's going to be running around in ceremonial garb for a duel, or just you prefer not to wear your armor, then this gives you that bit extra. So this is a very nice dueling kata.
And there are so many situations where you can't wear armor anyway because it's just not the done thing. So excellent for that sort of circumstance. So it's a good one, because I've noticed as I've been playing Ibushi finally when I've got a game is you easily end up with a whole bunch of kata, and you don't mind having one that's specific to a situation that sometimes comes up, sometimes doesn't. It's perfectly good because when it does come up, it can be really, really good. So yeah, Swallow's Dart Style looks to be a very, very good one.
So
yeah.
Anyway. Also those Iajutsu ones, you can't use those 2 opportunities that you want to save for your crit most of the time. Spend them on this.
There you go.
All right. Flexible grip. This is a flexible grip. This one is a good for non-fighter. And this one gives you the blunt end of the polearm strike for short-range combat. Now, one of the awkwardness of being a polearm fighter is the range bands. Water stance does have techniques that let you shorten that to 0. this also lets you do that. And it lets, since it says it's specifically turning it into a blunt weapon, you can use some of the blunt kata if you want with this. So as I said, you can pick up lots of kata if you're a fighter, and you might want to. And now, and some of those blunt kata are pretty decent kata, if you're going to use them. But the idea of fighting with a blunt weapon is kind of less than optimal. So this makes your polearm a blunt and a polearm weapon. So you open up your kata.
And yeah, you can change the kind of the profile of the weapon to something that suits your current circumstance, which I think is good.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah's Leap increases your deadliness on your spear. And I think that is something that is, if I recall correctly, the spears are not very deadly.
Not by default, no.
By default. And that is a big problem with spears over using katana if you want to do that. It's like something that ups the deadliness of your spear is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I liked those kata.
Yeah, I mean, it both decreases the amount of your target's physical resistance, which is almost like adding to damage. And it adds, it's per point of opportunity. And it also treats the deadliness as increased by the same amount. So it's pretty good.
Right. So spears are the yari is a very quintessential Japanese weapon. And you always want to be able to make a spear fighter. But when you're sitting there trying to make the decision between the katana and the spear straight, it's hard not to go for the bigger damage, bigger deadliness weapon. Yeah, it's hard not to go for the katana. So Sarah's Leap can help bridge that gap.
Yep.
And the last section of new techniques was some rituals. I really liked the survival rituals for the Yabanjin that you do to survive your high elevation or whatever.
Yeah.
Survival things. I think that's a good one, like maybe some of the Kamari ones. It's nice to potentially not just keep it exclusive to Yabanjin, but to other groups you want to say are particularly hardy, or allow that to leak into the rest of Rokugan for the right kinds of characters, if that makes sense. So that's all I'm going to say about techniques. That was way too much anyway.
Yeah.
Section 3 has a significant section in the beginning. It's more the GM section, talking about the elemental imbalance. And I really liked this as a GM section. It is kind of like it uses the elemental imbalance as an adventure engine, or kind of what I term, and have in some material on my site, kind of as a community hazard or prosperity system. So instead of saying natural disasters happen to your community and then you're just dealing with them afterwards.
Yeah.
You as a GM set up series of natural disasters, and they are caused by a solvable scenario. So a bad thing happens to your community, an earthquake. Well, you as samurai protecting this community now have to figure out, why did that earthquake happen, and make sure it doesn't happen again, because there was an elemental imbalance. So you go and investigate and find the elemental imbalance, and you solve that elemental imbalance, all right, by whatever was causing it, the angry earth kami or whatever. But in solving it, instead of it being a one-off, that triggers another kind of imbalance. Or another thing that happens, or another. So what caused that? So the earth kami is unhappy. So you go and appease the earth kami, but you find out that this other thing is wrong because that caused the earth kami. So you go and fix that, and that leads to this other thing. It's a kind of a natural series of adventures to do with a community, rather than you wandering from one community to the next, one place to the next, but by making bad things happening to that community as a series of solvable scenarios that have to do with this elemental imbalance. I liked it.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of ideas on how to put this together, including mechanics and such like. And it's also some emphasis on how these things will affect an entire society or an entire community and not just individuals. So yeah, lots of good stuff here.
There are new terrains indicating this elemental imbalance. So you can add those to your terrains list. There are also more new conditions, specifically illnesses, with different things that they do, and they are removable with different kinds of medicines or theology checks. I personally think that these in general should be medicine checks specifically, and even potentially have them quite high target numbers, higher, but then you can go because even though it's medicine, it might not be a core skill you use unless you're like playing a Kitsu medic or something. You can take the time to research it. So maybe if it's something that was done with one medicine check, takes a bunch of different checks that can stack, make it like a research task. Does that make sense? Or you do other things. Maybe you do a theology check that will lower the ultimate medicine check rather than just do a theology check to fix it. I don't like how Shugenja tend to stack everything in theology or have motivation to stack everything in theology. And this is medicine.
Yeah, I mean, there's each of these.
Make it medicine.
Yes, each of these are target number whatever, medicine or theology. And then they're each of them has its medicine or theology. And so there's no particular reason for a Shugenja to learn medicine because they can just do it with theology, which they'd be doing anyway. Yeah.
I think it should be my house rule, for these in general to be medicine, but theology could do things to assist the medicine. Lower the target give more information or help the person medicine. That's me. Take it or leave it. I just don't like stacking everything in a theology.
Yeah, it is convenient if everything is down like that. Yeah. So more stuff on playing different types of so looking at the elemental imbalances for new types of scenarios. There's monasteries and portraying monastic orders. There's a section on that, including a thing on what does sensitivity, basically defining what you mean by these things. Bearing in mind, we're talking about religion. Sometimes these are completely made up. Sometimes these are based off real world things. Your actual real world players may well have opinions on these things, and you've got to be cautious about those and not, perpetuating damaging stereotypes.
Just talk it out.
Yep. As is so often the case, it's talk it out and stuff like that. Both beforehand and after, what assumptions are we bringing to the table? What kind of real experiences do you have? And then stuff like that. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, were there any moments that you felt were authentic? Were there any moments that felt off? That sort of thing. So keeping a track of that. Mm-hmm. Discussions about, life in a monastery and what kind of things might happen, what kind of story potential there is. I thought this was pretty good stuff.
Overall, the one thing I've highlighted from that section is talking about pilgrimages. Pilgrimages is a perfectly good way to get a party together from all over.
Yeah. We're doing the tour.
Yeah, you or doing the tour, or all of you need to go to the all of you are facing big troubles with enemies in your homelands, and you are all going to the shrine of Hote or, Bishamon. You're all going to the shrine of Bishamon to pray, get assistance, plea to the fortune for the strength to go save your homeland.
Or, I mean, you could each have different reasons for going on this pilgrimage, but
Exactly. No, you're all from different clans. You're all going to the same shrine of Bishamon because you had a dream, or the wise priest told you to, or you can have a dozen different reasons why you are all going to the shrine of Bishamon. The shrine of Bishamon is on top of a mountain on this long journey, very far away, and you meet each other walking towards that way. And when you are there,
something happens.
You realize that you can help something happens, and you realize you can help each other with each of your problems.
Yeah.
And Bishamon is guiding you towards working together to solve all of them. And suddenly you have an adventuring party going to all the land.
I mean, and there's also there's also pilgrimage routes where you really would have loads of people not just going to one temple, but going to a series in a set order. And so there you go. There's a reason for a bunch of people to be traveling and having several adventures along the way.
All the shrines of Bishamon.
Yeah, or you're going to each of the 7 shrines of the 7 great fortunes.
Whatever. So anyway, those pilgrimage is a really good way to get a multi-group party together without the Emerald Magistrate.
Yeah, and also reasons for meeting all sorts of people along the way, because they are also going on pilgrimages. So there you go.
There's another section for playing non-humans and outsiders.
Stories of the strange.
Stories of the strange. I will just say on that, L5R, there does seem to be a little bit, I'm hoping that they go back in the next few books towards more humans.
Right.
And more insider stuff. It is always an easy way to expand your world to add more outsiders, because you can have an infinite number of kinds of outsiders, right? But I don't think it necessarily deepens your world. So to deepen your world, you need more insiders. To expand your world, you have outsiders. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, there's certain outsiders that are kind of already built into the game, the people who aren't samurai but are still part of the world. But I agree. I think we want to. I personally also want to spend more time in Rokugan about Rokugan rather than moving outside that. In a slightly grumpy way. I mean, in a way, that's kind of what Adventures in Rokugan is more about in many ways. So there you go.
So just something for, if anybody ever listens to this, who's writing this, maybe for the Scorpion book, go deep rather than one.
Because I suspect the Unicorn book will be yet more. I mean, the Unicorn, the Unicorn book pretty much has to be. That's pretty much what it's going to be. But I would, a deep dive, have the Scorpion book be more of a deep dive into Rokugani culture. I think would be pretty good.
All right. There are some new titles. I like titles very much, actually, because they are good for making unique people. There's the Awakened Soul title, which allows your roleplay to regain void faster. This is a very GM, give it to only your good players kind of a...
44 XP, good lord.
So, yes. But it's high. Anyway, it's very GM specific. So there you go. If you roleplay it right, you get void. Forester. Gains, this allows you to get rank 1 and 2 water and earth invocations and 1 to 3 Suji, even if you don't have access in your school. So any kind of title that gives you access to invocations should be thought about intelligently as a GM. All right. It's got very, very broad skill groups in your curriculum. And like I said, these things you don't normally get access to in terms of magic stuff for non-Shiginja. So just know what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's very nice if you don't have access to Shuji, or more likely you don't have access to water invocations. You might want some. So, this will have your Bushi doing Jade Strikes. So just a very straightforward be blunt about it. Yeah, this will give everyone Jade Strikes. If you are fine with that, that's great. If you're not, and they get it the day they get it, yeah, they open it up. So if you're fine with your Bushi having Jade Strikes, then
give them this title.
Freely give them this title, but you might want to think about it if you're not thinking of it that way. Temple Abbot, that's an NPC title. Can't see any particular reason why a PC would want it. However, it's a nice NPC title for more than Temple Abbots. It's not particularly religious. This is for teachers.
Yeah.
Like Shinsei at a school, this is a good title to give them for managing their school. Or this is just the wise old man. So I like that. Yokai Hunter. This allows you to commune with yokai as its ability. This title has Kiho in it. It is very nice for Bushi who want to use Kiho, which most Bushi would love to have a Kiho or two. And it's very easy to want to get it if you are doing any supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
So again, these titles, their power is in what they give you access to off curriculum that your school might not have access to. So,
and we round off the book with a discussion of one of the tenets of Bushido, and this is sincerity, Makoto. Aligning one's intent with their deeds and doing so with complete and total conviction of mind, body, and spirit. So there's some discussion of what it actually means, defining sincerity, talking about the edge of sincerity. To follow sincerity is not the same as bullheadedly rushing into every obstacle with eyes blazing with passion, although that is a very common samurai drama trope, it must be said.
Say what you mean, do what you say.
Absolutely.
That's what it is, and find ways to be truthful about it.
Yeah.
So it's not truthfulness, but, it's not lying. Yeah. It's like, say what you mean, do what you say.
Yep.
Is sincerity. The last complaint about the book, this is not a particular one. There is no Dragon Clan NPC template for this book.
No.
Most other Splat books have had templates for them. So sorry, you're just going to have to wing it. I think in part it would be hard to make a Dragon Clan NPC template because there's a huge difference between the template for a Togashi and a Miramoto.
Yep, not easy to sort out.
That's
so
we've gone long enough.
Some people, the complaints about this book have basically come down to lack of Dragon Clan specific schools. But I complain about school bloat, so I'm not too fast. There are a lot of schools already. Yeah, there are a lot of schools already added to this book. And a few bits and pieces. Honestly, I liked a lot of this. I liked a lot of what they added. I had some quibbles here and there, as you no doubt are aware if you've listened to this podcast and our previous one. But on the whole, I did quite like this one.
I liked this one because for a lot of reasons, but I think it gave us new stuff to play with. Even though it did not have that much for Dragon, I did not feel like what it had for Dragon countered any of the images that I had for Dragon. I'm not a Dragon player, but I felt like it went along and it nested very well with what we knew of Dragon. It opened a new Dragon, almost specific game space of this of the wilds of To me, it had a lot of locations and stuff that was a Dragon specific game area that the other clans just haven't got the same kind of interaction with at all. So even though it didn't have new dragon schools, it had new things for dragons to do.
Yes, I think that's a key thing.
Which I appreciated.
Yep.
They're slightly different. I've already said we'd love it to go, new books to go deeper rather than wider. But I thought that some of the mechanics in this in terms of, adventure engines were good. I thought there were really appealing things in the techniques in this. Nothing here seemed completely marginalized. So yeah, I liked it, and it was well written. So I liked this book too.
Yeah.
Like the art.
Yeah. Good art.
I found some of the complaints overblown. You've heard our quibbles, so I won't go into it.
Different people have different desires and wants out of the book. So, this may be simply that this is closer to what we want rather than what, other people may have had expectations. And this book does not meet those expectations for those people. And that's entirely fair and valid.
Mm-hmm. All right. But that's it for us this week. Hopefully this will sustain you for how long until I have something for you to talk about. We want to call out Fortune and Strife, our affiliated actual play podcast, as well as our friends at D20 Radio. Our content is funded by the Community Discord Patreon, which has our website and so on. We have really enjoyed their support and are grateful to them.
Very much so.
Yes. Our website, you can see longer term information and RPG tools and so on. And, hopefully, be some adventure seeds. Seabass has been doing some things, early access to our AP podcasts, and whatever we think of.
Yep. Online, you can find us at our website, which is courtgamespod.com. On Twitter, we are twitter.com/courtgamespod. And if you want to support us in what we do, you can find our Patreon at patreon.com/courtgames.
That's it for us this week. This is Kakita Kaori. May the fortunes favor you.
And I have been Korvar, and until we meet again, keep your jade handy.
D20 Radio, where gamers